My entitled friends and roommates refused to pay rent or the utilities, leaving me solely responsible to pay for everything just to make sure that we don't end up homeless, and I'm honestly blown away by their entitlement. Here's what happened. So you know those friends you have in high school that are absolute bros, your brothers from other mothers, your ride or die homies? Well, I have three, and this is a cautionary tale to any young or new adults who might run into this situation. After high school, I moved to a larger city to be near my high school girlfriend. I was there for a couple of years, renting rooms in larger houses, living more or less by myself, and learning how to be an adult. Living by myself got lonely, and since my girlfriend lived with her mom, living with her wasn't an option. So, over the years, my guy friends from high school would one by one fall on hard times or otherwise have a reason to leave our garbage town that we grew up in. Eventually, though, I was living with my three best friends. Every adult in my life warned me against it, but these guys were my favorite people in the world. They would not screw me over. Now, to prevent this story from being a 10-page essay, we'll skip past 2 years of living in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. About a year before COVID started, my girlfriend's neighbor was moving out of his house. We had become friends and often dog sat for him. He didn't want to give up his house in the city, so he was looking to rent it out. And wouldn't you know it, my roommates and I were looking for a place to rent. He offered us a spot at his 3-bedroom house for an insanely low price, $1,750, in a market where a house like this in a worse neighborhood goes for about $1,700. Obviously, we quickly agreed. 2 roommates split the master bedroom for $350 each, and the last roommate and I each had a smaller bedroom for about $525 apiece. Things started out great, but then COVID hit us like a truck. My roommates and I love to play video games, we love to smoke and watch dumb TV shows, so that's honestly what we did. But I had a girlfriend and would spend a lot of time at her house next door, where we'd do chores, take care of her kid brother, and do some school and work. My roommates, on the other hand, all they did was smoke and game and then smoke some more. Eventually, my state announced a moratorium on evictions and finalized our downfall. In the previous years, my roommates each had their own issues holding down a job, as well as paying for utilities and rent. Oftentimes, I was, despite being the youngest, the one that ended up covering missing rent and utilities. And I did this mostly because I enjoy having electricity and also not being homeless. Well, this moratorium set us into a tailspin, because now my roommates had no incentive to keep jobs. At any given time during this whole moratorium, at least one of them would be unemployed. If that one found a job, it was very short order until another one was jobless as well. Now, as previously mentioned, our landlord was my friend, and we were paying no more and no less than his house payments, and he had done us a massive favor in charging us so little. Eventually, rent came up, and since I was the one in charge of paying, I would be the one to talk to my roommates about paying their portion of rent. After the first month, they decided that it was unfair of me to ask so much of them, and simply claimed that he couldn't evict us if they didn't pay rent. I would plead and pester, and eventually, I convinced them to scrape together what little money they had that normally would go towards other garbage. Rent was getting later and later. I was stupid, I was young, and I figured, well, as long as they had a plan for rent, I wouldn't care too much if it was late. Well, rent was never on time, and my poor friend and landlord was extremely financially stressed, but I assured him that it wouldn't be a problem. Eventually, each month was getting more and more dire. They'd have to sell things, I'd have to give them things to sell, they'd stop paying for utilities to pay for the rent. I didn't really care if the internet bill didn't get paid. I had Wi-Fi next door. The internet was shut off for them with relative frequency, but they'd always scrape something together to get it going again so they could game and stream. Bills started piling up, to the point where I made a very intricate spreadsheet that kept track of bills paid by whoever did it and showed plainly how much someone was or wasn't contributing towards the household. And this was the thing that finally opened my eyes. I did the math over a couple of months, and I was out thousands of dollars keeping us afloat. In fact, I only recently, about 3 years later, managed to pay off the utilities debt that they ditched me with. Eventually, things came to a head in an explosion that deserves its own post. I will never have roommates again, and I learned an important lesson. Just because some people are your friends, it doesn't mean that their work ethic is anything like yours, and I will never live with anybody who doesn't match my same sense of responsibility. Wow, that seriously must have been a nightmare. I'm honestly blown away that your best friends would act that way, but unfortunately, this is something that really does happen. Sure, these are high school friends that you're really good friends with. You would do anything for them and vice versa. They seriously have your back in just about all facets of life, but here they are, blowing their chance at proving their worth. Like seriously, your roommates sound like absolute garbage people. They clearly took advantage of your kindness and said to themselves, oh, it's okay, we're not going to get evicted because our friend here is just going to pay for it. And with this moratorium eviction notice, basically preventing them from getting evicted in the first place, that certainly didn't help any of your problems moving forward. And unfortunately, in times like this, it really does show exactly exactly who really is a responsible adult and who's just there to have a good time and party. Because I really think you have it right. I would rather be around somebody who's willing to be a responsible adult instead of someone who just wants to stay at home and smoke and play video games. Like, they're not contributing anything to society, and more importantly, they're not paying for any of the bills or the rent that's owed. I'm honestly really surprised though, by the way, that the original poster didn't try to, like, I don't know, take their friends to court or anything like that. Like, you had a very clear spreadsheet of what they did and didn't pay. You had it all clearly written out, and I'm pretty sure you could have explained exactly what was going on in that house to a judge if you were given the chance. But honestly, with all things considered, I understand why you didn't do that. You were basically right out of high school. These were friends that you never thought would betray your trust, and you thought these people had your back, so I completely understand where you're coming from. But I think if anything, you learned a very valuable lesson, proving that just because someone's a really good friend doesn't mean that this is someone you would ever want to live with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I'm worried that my fiance is cheating on me with my best friend, and I'm now at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have been together for 4 years. During this time, we did not have any serious problems in our relationship. Yes, we did sometimes have some fights, as it does happen with all couples, but it was never too long or too serious or too often. Over the years, my fiance has also made friends with my best friend, with whom I have been friends with since elementary school. This is a man with whom I went through fire and water with. As a teenager, I saved his life twice. The first time when he started drowning in a village river, and the second time when he took his father's car without asking and drove into a road sign, almost breaking his neck. I thought he was the brother I never had. I had no secrets from him. He probably knew even more about me than my father, and I always thought I knew him better than his parents too. We have never had fights over girls. Even in the 5th grade, we swore that nothing and no one could ever destroy our friendship, and that's why I never ever worried about my friend hanging out with my girlfriend a lot without me. I was convinced that there was just friendship between them. I turned a blind eye to the fact that my friend's things began to appear in our house. One time I found his lighter on the table, and another time I found his smartwatch. I was a little surprised that he was in our house without saying it to me, but like the last fool, I didn't see anything wrong with that. I didn't see that something was wrong, even though I began to notice about a year and a half ago. My girlfriend began to linger at work, decided to go on vacation without me, and I noticed that she was not behaving as usual. After work, she immediately ran to the shower and did not hug me as usual. All this time, I suspected she was having an affair, but I had no proof. My girlfriend was moving away from me more and more, becoming cold and withdrawn, and later, I found out that she constantly communicates online with my friend, talks to him on the phone, and she leaves home to walk with him. My friend's attitude towards me has also changed. He started dropping rude jokes in my direction, stopped talking to me about his work and life. He mocked me in front of my girlfriend, and then said that he was just joking. The most annoying thing is that my girlfriend laughed at these jokes of his. He could flirt a little with my girlfriend right in front of me, and if I was perplexed, he replied that he was just complimenting her, and my girlfriend said that I was just too jealous and clingy. And yesterday, my friend and I started mock fights in front of my girlfriend. I, as usual in these mock fights, controlled my strength, but he just broke my nose. After that, he apologized for a long time and claimed that it was an accident. But I was already suspicious. I think my best friend and my girlfriend are having an affair, but I do not know how to bring it to light. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so first off, I can see where you're coming from, where you might be a little bit paranoid about your friend and your girlfriend. Like, what you've described really does seem like it's some kind of like sketchy situation, and I can understand why you would connect the dots in the way that you have. But with all of that in mind, I think it would be an awful idea to jump to some kind of conclusion, all without any kind of like irrefutable evidence. Like, I think it's a really bad idea to approach either of them and be like, hey, listen, I know you're either cheating on me or you're helping my partner cheat on me, or even make some kind of like definitive statement, all without some kind of like hard proof. I think that would be an awful idea, and it would do way more damage than good. Because what if they are just friends? Like, seriously, what if they're just good friends and they just so happen to be going through like private things individually, and it just so happens to coincide with both of them like being distant from you? I don't think that's totally outside the realm of possibility, and I don't think it would be impossible to say that you might be overreaching in the situation, especially because you don't have any like hard evidence. So in my opinion, I would see if I can find something to prove your suspicions right, because without that, honestly, you can't draw some kind of conclusion that isn't there. And I really believe that approaching either of them and accusing them of messing with your relationship is only going to do more harm than good in the long run. Would I be the jerk if I didn't invite my brother to my college graduation after he's treated me like garbage for several years? Here's what happened. So as the title states, I don't want to invite my brother to my college graduation. When we were teenagers, we were very close. We would take walks together just to have time to talk talk to one another. When I was a senior in high school, he told me that he planned on stopping his classes and attending again next year. I told him that I don't think that's a good idea, since statistically, people who take a year off from classes never go back, and he'll still have to pay tuition, so he may as well try. He got very quiet and didn't say anything further. Well, about a month later, I found out I got accepted into my first choice of university. My brother was the first person I told, and I still remember his exact response. He said to me, "I'll be here to support you when you drop out." And when he said that to me, I was heartbroken. What was supposed to be an exciting moment for me was immediately met with him basically telling me that I'm gonna fail. Well, fast forward a few years to early 2022, and my mother and I had a huge fight after I found out she put my name on a credit card as a kid and never paid off the debt. Well, my brother ran to her aid and called me a lying, manipulative, narcissistic jerk. And my mother and I had already resolved the issue before he called me that. Last week, I told my mother that I did not want to invite my brother to my graduation. She told me that he would be heartbroken if I didn't invite him, and said that he often speaks highly of me and says how proud he is of me. Well, he never said any of this to me, so I told her the things that he did say, and she said that it was ultimately my choice, but that it would probably end our relationship altogether. Our relationship is already hanging by a thread. We only talk on birthdays and Christmas, and anytime I think of him, I only see a person who is waiting for and expecting me to fail. Since my brother lives with our mother, I can't just not tell him when graduation is. I would have to specifically tell him that you are not invited. So honestly, would I be the jerk for not inviting my brother to graduation? This is a really tricky one, because I can see both sides of this very clearly. For starters, your brother is an absolute jerk. He's treated you like garbage, and he's basically said, "Oh, you're gonna fail at college." But here you are, literally proving him wrong on the brink of graduating from university, which is definitely more than what your brother can say. And yes, he has said some awful things to you in the past, and he's done some stuff that really is unacceptable. But with all of that in mind, in my opinion, I think it would be way worse to not invite him to your college graduation than to straight up say to him that he cannot come along. And this is not for the reasons that you might be thinking. While this is a special day for you, and this is a massive accomplishment in your life, I think this can also be a chance to rub it in his face that yes, you did succeed, and no, you did not fail. Like, this would be the best revenge you could possibly give him by basically showing him up and proving him wrong in a very real and tangible way. Like, why would you want to give up that opportunity to show to him once and for all that yes, you could do it? Because here's the thing, by not inviting him, you're just gonna give him more reasons to hate you, and he would probably hold this over your head forever. But on the other side of that, by inviting him and allowing him to come along, you are at least able to say, if anybody complains, that yes, you did invite your brother to come along to your graduation. This will literally allow you to completely dispel anything anyone could possibly say about you, especially if your brother tries to run his mouth later on about you. You can literally turn around and be like, well, I tried to invite him to graduation, but he clearly doesn't want to show support to me and be a good brother. Like, this is nothing but a win for you, in my opinion. If he does show up, you've got perfect evidence you can rub in his face, but if he doesn't show up, he's gonna seem like an absolute jerk. You can literally use that as a shield if he tries to mouth off against you in any kind of way. But you know what? At the end of the day, this is your decision and it's your graduation. But I really think there are some fantastic advantages by inviting your brother to your graduation. Am I the jerk for going over my professor's head? All because I feel I deserved a better grade than my professor gave me. Here's what happened. Recently, I had to do a literary analysis essay. Admittedly, I put it off until the night before and wrote it while pulling an all-nighter to study for some other things as well. Regardless, as I've always been generally good at literary analysis, I feel that I did well. I got it back at the beginning of the week, and surprisingly, I was given a 70%. The reasoning given was that although the paper itself was good, I had committed the following cardinal sins. I did not include a title, I did not include page numbers or use present tense, and I didn't use a works cited page. I find the last point to be especially stupid, given I did only reference one text, and was only supposed to reference one text, which is the book itself. I did the text citation within the essay itself, and didn't feel the need to include a citations page. Using past tense as well, it seems immaterial. The first two, fair enough, but I didn't think that those merit the quality of the paper immensely. Those lapses were a product of my sleep-deprived brain. I tried talking to the professor, saying that I didn't deserve 30% off, but she said that she just followed the rubric. But I found this unfair, as she had not even made her rubric public to the students. So I went to the department head and I showed him my paper. He agreed with me that it deserved better than a 70% and mandated that it be regraded with less severe amount of points docked for the lapses. I ended up with a 92%, but the professor confronted me and said she didn't appreciate me playing politics to get a better grade than I deserved. I don't think that's fair, because I do think that I deserved a higher grade than I received, and clearly the department had agreed as well. So am I the jerk for going over my professor's head? Because at this point, I'm not sure, and I seriously seriously don't know what to do. I'm gonna say absolutely yes, you are the jerk in this situation. In my opinion, I think you got off incredibly lucky, and I think a 70% was only because you did a good job in the paper itself. I've had professors where if I missed those 4 things that you listed, they would just straight up give me a 0, as all of those sections that you just completely didn't include are extremely vital for a paper. And the fact that you complained to the department head, screaming to them that, oh man, I deserve better than a 70%, really makes you look like an entitled brat and honestly does not serve you well in this school. Like, are you really trying to say that a works cited page is not important for an assignment? Like, are you kidding me right now? Do you want to get accused of plagiarism? And I honestly don't believe what the original poster is saying, where they are claiming that there's no rubric that students can have access to. Like, I think that's a bunch of BS in my opinion, because professors at the beginning of the semester, they give you a syllabus of everything that's expected. And that syllabus is like the Bible. Whatever's written on there absolutely is what the professor's gonna do. So I seriously think the original poster's lying here, where they're trying to claim, oh, we don't have access to the rubric. That's not true, and I don't believe you for a second. Also, you waited until the last second to do the assignment in the first place. Like, at that point, whatever poor grade you receive is literally your own fault. You didn't properly plan this out, and you put it off all for the sake of working on other things. Like, that's nobody's fault except for your own. And by the way, the content in the essay itself is literally just as important as the things that you didn't include. You need page numbers, you need a title, you absolutely need a works cited page. Like, come on, any legitimate student would know that. So yes, with all things considered, I do think you're the jerk here, and I personally have to agree with your professor. It really did seem like you were trying to play politics just to try and get a better grade. My partner is angry with me because I didn't wake them up enough at 6 o'clock this morning for an exam that they needed to take, and now they're frustrated with me, saying that I didn't do enough to make sure that they woke up on time. And I'm now so frustrated, and I don't know if I did anything wrong, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we are both in our mid-20s, they're studying further while working, and had an exam that started at 8 o'clock in the morning. Last night, they asked me to wake them up at 6 o'clock, so I'd probably set my alarm for 6 o'clock. It is usually set at 6:15, as that's when I wake up for work. Well, at 5 o'clock in the morning, our cat was scratching at the bedroom door to be let out, so we both woke up for a few seconds. By the time I woke up and got back to bed, they had already fallen back to sleep. Well, at 6 o'clock this morning, the alarm went off as normal, and I shook them awake. Their eyes opened and they shifted in bed. I thought that they were awake, and as such, I went back to sleep for a few minutes. At around 6:25, I woke up naturally and checked my phone to see the time. Realizing that they were late, I exclaimed, "Wake up, it's 6:30. They promptly woke up in a flash and started getting ready, as I made some coffee and some breakfast for them. When they were done getting ready, we had an argument where they were super angry at the fact that I didn't wake them up on time. I responded in anger, stating that I woke them up at 6 o'clock, but they fell back asleep. They responded by saying that was a waking someone up, and that they weren't up and neither was I. Furthermore, their argument is also that they don't remember being woken up at 6 o'clock, only at 5 o'clock when there was a noise. They also angrily mentioned that if they missed the exam, who's going to take off another day of work to write the exam, as they already took weeks off of work for studying. I can understand their anger that they entrusted me to wake them up at 6 o'clock and such, and being woken up nearly half an hour later would be infuriating. But I believe they have no grounds to be angry, as they did not wake up when they needed to. Furthermore, they didn't take any responsibility to set their own alarms. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk in this situation. You're both in your mid-20s and your partner can't wake themselves up for an exam? Like, seriously, how is this your fault? You did what they asked you to do. You literally shook them awake and said, hey, you've got to get up, you've got to go for your exam. You did your job by stirring them awake. And honestly, the fact that they fell asleep completely falls on their shoulders. Like, you are not this person's mom or dad. They are literally responsible for their own obligations, and I think it's completely inappropriate for you to get roped into their garbage. So no, once and for all, you are not the jerk. I don't think you did anything wrong here, and the fact that they're trying to blame you on them not waking up on time is a clear and present sign of their immaturity, and that is absolutely inappropriate, and you definitely do not deserve to be treated that way. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.